Hello, welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing a little bit of a retro review. We are checking out the L'Oreal Paris True Match Super Blendable Makeup Foundation. This is the L'Oreal OG foundation. I tried to find some information on when this foundation initially launched. The best that I could find was an article from, I think it was 2017, that said something about this foundation launching over 15 years ago. So it's probably been at least 18 years since this foundation released. Probably been around since the 90s. I don't know. If you have some info, if you know when this foundation launched, definitely let me know in the comments. The point is, it's been around for a while, right? I did a little retro review on the Maybelline True Matte Mousse whatever foundation. That was a lot of fun, and I was surprised by how much I actually still liked that foundation. That was one that I used in middle school. Now, I have played around with some of the L'Oreal True Match products kind of back before I really knew anything about makeup. I used to use the powder, I think a blush, but I never actually used this foundation. Now, who knows, since it's launched, who knows how much they've changed the formula. I know that they have released new shades since it initially launched, but the fact that it is still on the shelves in drugstores, still being produced, means that people still use it. Someone must still use it, right? So I figured it was time to give it a try, do a little retro review moment. Let me know if you've ever used this foundation before, what your thoughts are on it. We're gonna explore it. I actually don't really know anything about this foundation. We're just gonna find out today. So if you're new here, my name's Haley. Thanks so much for stopping by. I would really appreciate it if you consider subscribing to my channel before you go. But without further ado, let's get in. God, I'm just all over the place today. Let's just get started. Okay, y'all, it's time. I have in my possession the L'Oreal Paris True Match Super Blendable Makeup Titanium Dioxide Sunscreen Broad Spectrum SPF 17. I got the shade Shell Beige C4 Cool Undertone. Looks like it ought to match, if not be maybe a little deep for me. I'm quite excited for this. I've never tried the L'Oreal True Match Super Blendable Makeup before. Now, the predicament that I'm finding myself in is that this is just a bottle with some liquid in it. And I'm like, what do I do here? I'm not really a big fan of a wand. So I guess at least there's no wand. But there's no pump, no squeeziness, no nothing. I guess I'm just gonna pour it out on the back of my hand. Based on the way it sounded when I shook it, it sounds like it's gonna be liquidy. So let's just see. Ooh! Oh, that's messy. See, yeah, so pretty runny consistency. Let's check it out. Maybe a little dark for me, yeah. Oh, child. Uh-oh. Hold on. Got some eyeshadow fallout that I should address before continuing with the foundation. Okay, now where was I? Yeah, this is definitely a little dark for me, but it's blending into the skin well enough. Oh, child. Who do I think I am? J-Lo? Gosh. It's hard to get just a little bit out because, how you pour it, you know? It's so dark, oh my gosh. Okay, so not only is this particular shade a little deep for me, I do feel like it's maybe oxidizing even. which is not a big deal because at least the undertone does kind of match me, so that's something. I still have product left on my hand that I'm gonna have to wipe off, but I wouldn't say that it's like a little goes a long way type of a product. I'd call it about medium coverage, finish looks natural. I didn't really like look up anything about this foundation before I got it and tried it, so I honestly don't know a lot about it. But that was kind of my assumption, was that it was going to be like natural finish, medium coverage. And that's pretty much what it's given me right now, which I am not mad about. I wish the shade was a little bit better match for me, but everything looks pretty good as of right now. So not too mad about it. And it's even settling down, looking a little bit matte even. So not totally luminous, natural. It's looking a little matte, not gonna lie. A little bit matte-like. Okay. Okay. Let me go throw some more makeup on. I'll be right back. Here I am. Okay, so foundation's been on for a couple of hours now. I've kind of been up and about and around into things and, you know, whatnot. So I would definitely say that the foundation kind of oxidized. Like, it's probably not that noticeable, but you can see where, like, my concealer goes on, like, around this kind of area. You can see how much lighter that is than, like, the rest of my face, which is, like, you know, kind of what people tend to go for, but I don't normally go for this much contrast between my foundation and my concealer. I did put on bronzer, but the bronzer's not even, like, popping that much on my face because the foundation is a little deep. So I would say if you are going to try this foundation, I would go lighter than maybe what you would expect it to be, because based on the description of this shade, it should have worked out pretty well for me, just based on how I tend to pick foundations and how my shades normally match to my skin. It's not a bad match, and it didn't oxidize so horribly that I can't even live with it, you know, but it is just a little bit deeper. It did oxidize a little bit, so I don't love that, but we can live with it, right? Like I was saying when I applied it, I definitely feel like it's kind of almost matte, like natural leaning matte. So it's definitely not like a luminous dewy finish. No ma'am. It's not dry though. Like, it's not super dry like a mattifying foundation typically would be, but it definitely didn't leave any kind of, like, it settled into the skin, dried down, and I maybe wouldn't have even needed to powder. I always powder, but I just used my little Kiko Milano Perfecting setting powder, which is a very light, luminous type of powder. I love this powder so much. It's looking pretty good so far. It is settling already a little bit into like my smile lines. Looks pretty good on my chin, actually. Looks decent on my forehead still. Not mad about it as of right now. Do we see what's happening with my eyeshadow right here on this inner corner, ma'am? I will check back in a few more hours and we will see how it goes. So far, it's good. Medium coverage, natural to matte finish. Not bad. I'll be back in a little bit. Hey, what's up? Okay, so I wore this foundation for 3 days in a row. Forgot to do a check-in all 3 days, but I have worn it, like I said, for several days in a row. So number one, I am sad to report that this foundation really clogged my pores. I'm guessing that it was this foundation. I didn't really change anything else about my skincare routine or what I do with my skin. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. So I did notice that my pores were more clogged than they normally are after 3 days of wearing this foundation. It doesn't surprise me, to be completely honest, just because foundations and products in general with SPF do that to me sometimes. It just doesn't always agree with my skin. So that's kind of a bummer. As far as like how the foundation performed though, I was spending all 3 days wearing this, like really questioning why we make so much makeup. I was just like, why do we keep making foundations when we already have foundations that work? You know what I mean? So it wore really well. I liked the coverage. I liked that it felt really light on my skin. It wore pretty well, but I did notice that this foundation like will rub off so easily. And I mean, of course, if you like rub your face, your makeup's gonna come off. But I have a tendency to touch my face a lot and lean on stuff I probably shouldn't lean on, that kind of thing, you know? So when a foundation rubs off easily, I definitely notice. And this one rubbed off quite easily. And I will say it still does make sense why we keep making foundations, because I was a little bit like Goldilocks with this foundation, where it was like almost great, but I would want it just a little bit more like this. So like the coverage was good, but I could maybe stand a little bit more coverage. The finish was nice, but for it to be natural, I would want it to be a little bit more natural. If it's supposed to be matte, then it would need to be a little bit more matte. Does that make sense? So it's good, it works. The shade match, of course, was not my best shade matching, but it is a good functional foundation that works. And yeah, it reminds me a lot of my L'Oreal Infallible foundations, just as far as like consistency and finish goes. I definitely still prefer my L'Oreal Infallible foundations, particularly the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Matte and the Fresh Wear. Both of those foundations are really, really good. Fresh Wear has SPF in it, and that SPF doesn't seem to bother my skin. And the Infallible line came well after this True Match one did, so it kind of just shows how they've sort of been upping their game ever since their original member, if that makes sense. So it's not bad, it's not great. I'm not going to continue to use it just because like I said, I feel like it's clogging up my pores. But yeah, I'm really curious. Have you tried this? Are you using it? Do you use it? Would you like to use it? I think it's good, not great. I definitely have better options, but it's not the worst. It is not the worst. If you haven't seen my foundation declutter video, I talk about some of the worst in that one. This one, far from the worst. What products should I do a retro review on next? I've had this one kind of in my head for a while, so I'm gonna have to think on what else would be fun to do a retro review on a little bit, but anywho, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!